What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another week of PGA golf. We haven't had Kenny fill in before, which he did a great job, by the way. Really, really good stuff because he's very caught up on the FedEx stuff, and I think we should probably get him in here sometime for maybe next week for the big one for the other one. But yeah, it's interesting. The BMW Championship. We've got an interesting field here, and I have a lot of different narratives that I'm playing into and trying to get it all right. Sheets, any overall thoughts before we jump into the slate, and then
Yeah. So once again, for those of you that watched my video last week, I really hope you got in there, because I did highlight two things. I said that if you're going to play anybody over 10K, play John Rahm, and the other thing I said was that Tony Finau was a great play. I unfortunately played too much Tyrrell Hatton, so that was my downfall. And that's the way that goes with golf. But I actually had a chance to go to the tournament on Thursday, and it's for those of you who've never been to PGA golf, it really is the best sport relative to watching it on TV, just because you could get right up to these players. Like, the most amazing thing, you get to hear them talk to their caddies and all of it, and it was awesome. And I'll go over some of the things I kind of learned. One thing I learned, we'll get to him later, some of these guys are so young. like
They're babies, I know.
The gap between that's one of the weird things about this kind of sport, man, when you can have guys like literally like 30 years apart in some cases, maybe not 30, but 20 years apart, like competing against each other. It's really is amazing. And then, it was kind of cool is like, remember there are threesomes, and invariably you'll see these guys, and you don't see this on TV. Usually two of the guys end up kind of like friendly and talking to one another, and another guy is just kind of like out on his own, and it's kind of interesting. Like and it wouldn't be like who you think. Like, so I was watching, for example, like Tyrrell Hatton was paired with Taylor Gooch and Sebastian Munoz, and Hatton and Munoz were like best friends like the whole tournament. Like, they were like up and down the course, whatever. And Taylor Gooch totally like just kind of like on his own, like nobody would talk to him, kind of like the poor guy, whatever it is. And I don't know, it was really, really great experience. I hope I don't get too much falling in love with these golfers from my experience, kind of like watching them and just kind of remember what I'm trying to do here. But yeah, so it's a no cut event, right? Yep. And as you guys have learned with no cuts events, remember, I was in position to win all the money with a guy that did nothing.
Not only did he nothing, he was going. I mean, he shot 15 over.
He did less than nothing. I mean, like, he did less than nothing.
Yeah, but
so don't be afraid to dip down low. And as you'll see if you pull up my sheets, which are available on TrueDFS, a lot of the high rated values are low rated, are low priced guys, and one of the reasons for that is because you're going to get your 4 rounds out of them, and it opens up to some of these high upside plays, which we will, and these high price plays, I should say, which we will get to.
Yeah, I'm excited to get back to it. I mean, I it's funny because I actually have been having a rough go on MLB, and that's just what happens in MLB. You go through streaks; it's going to happen. But with golf, I have 4 consecutive weeks where I've at least doubled my money. That I didn't play last week because I had some family stuff. But I've done very well. Even for the 406, I ended up cashing in like 50th place in the 555 with the 406. And you missed that week, but me and Kenny were talking. I was saying this is the perfect time to come back to Siwoo Kim, and Siwoo Kim, of course, comes in second. We had Kisner and everything like that figured out. But the Siwoo Kim play would have won me the tournament instead of where I don't remember who I spent down on there, but it would have been nice to win that 100K. But anyway, let's get it this week, Sheets. I got a good feeling about it. We've done some research. We'll get Kenny back on at some point because I know people really appreciated his insight into some of this stuff. I might even, just for fun, record another show with him later today just about this stuff, and sort of even asking him a reaction to our show because he usually watches it.
So what are your narratives that you're talking about?
You're talking about the people who are trying to crack the top 30, and then the people who are on the verge who could give it up. You obviously don't want to be overcautious. Guys who are in the top 10 already don't have as much to worry about, might play a little bit more conservative in the tournament to try and make sure that they do in fact continue on. That's the kind of stuff that you're looking at for the FedEx playoffs, that just that kind of thing. And I think there's some guys who, this is one that Kenny knows better than I do, but he's recommended certain guys to me sort of with that narrative going. And then you've got guys who like have to, top 10, like a guy like Homa in order to make it, I believe. Just to give a teaser, I do love Homa. But mainly what I love is I think that on these no cut weeks, like even with the Siwoo thing, I think there was like 12 golfers that were obviously had better scores. He had literally double the worst score of anybody, but he had a better score than 12 other guys who were down there. You know what I mean? Because he was birdie, he had a birdie streak, he had all those things. So we want to sort of shoot for upside on some of these guys, even guys who we don't think necessarily are going to have the best tournament. You want the high variance, in my opinion, on these tournaments. That's just one basic.
Well, I'll be interested to know where we come out on the, because I really didn't factor. I didn't even think about that. So I really didn't factor that in at all when I was doing my stuff. So I'll be curious to see how our takes kind of mesh together or apart based on that.
Yeah.
So what do you think of? Oh, let me share my screen.
Yeah, share your screen. We'll jump in the top range.
Then we'll get into the top 10K, and I will actually I'm also going to oh wait, I gotta pull this over somewhere else, and I'm going to start talking about where my exposures are as well. So because I am pretty well built for this week already, and as I get to them, I'll tell you where that is.
Look at that! I like that balance you got up there. I like that you leave the money in there. Look at that.
What's that?
Your balance I was talking about. It's nice.
Oh yeah.
Nice little balance there. All right, so talk about the top range. Who you like above the 10K?
Yeah. So for me, based on my numbers and based on what I'm looking at, it's the exact same thing as I said last week. I'm only playing one guy over 10K at all in DFS, and I almost have 100% of him, and that is John Rahm. I'm paying all the way up for him. He's, I can talk about the narrow, whatever. He's the best golfer right now, in spite of the back nine yesterday, Monday. He was well on his way to just throttling that field, and that was a tough field last week. As it is every week. It's the playoffs, right? And he, just a couple of bad strokes, and then then you let people back in, and then that's what happens. But that's where I'm going. I don't have much of an interest in anybody else from a DFS perspective in the 10K range, and that's where I'm at.
Yeah. So all right. So I'm basically similar to you. I do want to say the only thing about the narrative thing with Rahm, and it's not going to matter so much, but anything he does top 15, top 20, which is obviously not what you want out of a guy who you pay this much for, but he's probably going to finish there, and he's probably going to make sure he finishes there and take less shots, less chances. There's an argument a little bit against him. I actually think if I was looking at ownership at 20%, I would be like, okay, well, I feel like he should be 75% owned. This guy is just hard not to want to play every week. The only other guy who I was considering in the 10K plus range were DJ and JT. I don't know if I'm going to end up getting to them because I prefer the other ranges better. So we're on a similar page. And then Morikawa, I don't mind right at 10K flat, but I just think there are other plays in the other ranges that I prefer.
So is there any guy in the 10? So let's talk more about this stuff, because I didn't really think about that at all. So is there any guy in this 10K range that needs to take chances?
Well, I think that, I don't think they need to necessarily take huge chances, but each of them, I believe, still has a chance to get into that top 10 and get 4 strokes over the field for the FedEx playoff and everything like that. So it does still affect some of them. I don't have all that information right here. I do have some of it. Okay. But I unfortunately, if we had Kenny here, he'd literally spout it off because he's done every part of research on this that you could possibly imagine. But I do think that, like a Morikawa, for example, and a DJ, as well as JT, all have decent motivation. But it's not, you're going to find that more in the other ranges, in my opinion, that you have the guys who sort of need to do better. All right, let's talk about the 9K range. Who do you have prioritized? Because this range I like quite a bit.
Yeah. Oops, that's something else. First of all, in the 9K range is where my outright bet is going to come from.
Can I guess? Is it Cantlay?
You will not be able to guess, and it is not Cantlay. That was going to be Victor Hovland, actually.
That was my next guess. It would have been my next one.
And he is, and I have actually 2 units on Hovland and 1 actually going right back to Berger. And those are my 2 favorite. Those 2 and DeChambeau are my 3 highest owned guys in that range, and my highest owned guys below 10K in general. Actually, that's not true. I have a guy under 7K who's higher than those. But Hovland and Berger and DeChambeau are my favorites in the range. And I did not get to any of the others. I mean, I'm only playing 20 lineups, so I am pretty concentrated. Let me just scan through. I did get a little. I got like 10% of Cantlay, but that's pretty much it. And by the way, let me tell you something about DeChambeau. I mean, I was following him like the whole his whole round. He sweats every shot, man. I was reading some stuff about how like going into the Sunday, they're like, oh, don't play him in show. He doesn't give a crap today. Dude, every freaking shot is the end of the world to him. I'm telling you. And if you look at the way his results dispersed over the first day or whatever, the guy does nothing but make bogeys and birdies. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what you want. And I'll just keep playing this dude. So that's where I'm at with that.
So I like it. I like a lot of players in this range, as I mentioned. It's a really, I think this is where I build around and try to skip the 10K plus range this week, probably. I think it's very strange that people just don't want to play Tony Finau now. I think this whole thing that people do is so dumb to me. And I just don't think there's any merit for it whatsoever. You don't need the guy to win 2 weeks in a row.
No, definitely not.
So Finau at low ownership and Cam Smith, particularly Smith, though. I prefer Smith over Finau. I will be well ahead of the field on Cam Smith. I've been on the record for a while saying I think this guy's one of the best around, and he's done nothing to prove me wrong. He had a little bit of a blip for a few weeks. Other than that, I mean, those few weeks, yeah, you can't just take him away. But he had 5 tournaments where he didn't, he made the cut in 3 of them, but he didn't finish higher than 30th. Other than that, he's basically 7 tournaments in a row in the top 20. Take away those weeks. And 5 in the top 10, 3 in the top 5. I just think he's excellent, and I'll take the low ownership on him. I love Rory. Definitely has something to play for this week. I like Bryce. Cantlay and Hovland are the chalk, and I like both of them a ton. I just don't think, and Berger, but I don't think, because I like this range so much, I just think I probably will use it on the guys who are a little bit lower owned. I know there's supposed to be high ownership on Rory this week. We'll see. I don't know that I fully buy into that with all these other guys around him. And then I just think it's weird whenever Oosthuizen stops getting the traction. What exactly does this guy need to do? All he does is come top 20, and mostly he comes top 5. I just don't understand it. I think people are getting too cute by not playing him. So I know I mentioned a lot of names, but I think Smith, Oosthuizen, Finau, and Rory will get the majority of my ownership here. Trying to fade a little bit of the Bryce, Cantlay, Hovland, Berger chalk. I do think Berger is the one I prefer the most out of that entire group. Only player on the field, I believe, who's gaining on every single aspect. And I think he's a terrific play. So I definitely want some Berger exposure. I just don't love that he's going to have a little bit more ownership, I think, than the Cam Smith, Tony Finau will. But I do think Berger's an excellent play.
Yeah, I do feel as though, just similar to the other no-cut week, I think that the ownership is going to be spread out a little bit. I think that Rahm will be the highest owned. I'm going to do another update on this, but I think it's going to be pretty spread out. I think people will play DeChambeau. I think people will play Rory at that price.
Yeah.
I think people will play Berger. They always play Berger because he's always underpriced. I mean, he is. Right. He's just super solid every week. I think people are going to play a lot of guys because, all these guys are really good. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, yeah. So you want to move on to below 9K?
Yeah. So I'll start this one off. There are 3. Look, there's a lot of guys we can make good arguments for. Like, on its face, I like Scheffler and Connors quite a bit, but I'm not going to play them at higher ownership. My ownership is going to go towards shocker, Sam Burns. Shocker. I know Hideki. I think Hideki is a phenomenal play this week at 8,800. Doesn't really have much to play for, which has me a little worried. But I just think that you're getting low ownership on a guy who I could easily see winning this tournament. And then it's going to be Harris English for me. I love Harris English. I think Paul Casey will be astronomically owned, and I will just go a tiny bit below him for half the ownership, and I will take Joaquin Niemann instead. Those are my guys.
Yeah. So again, this is a kind of trip report stuff. So when I was following the DeChambeau group, it was DeChambeau, JT, and Burns, which was kind of a funny group, right?
Yeah.
And JT and DeChambeau were laughing it up, doing whatever, and Burns is off on his own, and Burns hung right there and had a nice tournament. And Burns had a very, very nice tournament. I am not as interested in some of that 8K chalk that you mentioned you're not interested in. I'm not too interested in I'm going to get to Casey just because, but I'm not going to force that. I mean, Harris English, I think, is also going to be somewhat chalky. I think all these 8K guys are going to get, obviously not all these 8K guys, but the guys that you mentioned are going to get some ownership. I don't think Burns is going to get any ownership. I think that's a good way to go. Corey Connors, again, he's going to be 15% plus, English 15% plus. I'm probably not going to get as much of that. Again, my build is going to be more towards guys below 8K and 7K maybe. But I'm pretty much in agreement with you on the rest of that 8K analysis.
Yeah, I think my builds are going to be 3 or 4 guys from the 8 and 9Ks and then spending down probably, just because I really like these ranges. Okay. And I personally do think there's some strong play. Answer is the one it's always alarming to me. I feel like anytime Answer's low owned, we kind of should play him. He's just really good and really consistent. And I feel like it makes, it doesn't really make sense. There's not really a logical explanation except for the other players in his price range, but he's been every bit as consistent, actually more consistent than all those guys. Maybe he hasn't flashed quite as much upside, although he's shown some. But I really like Answer as well. So why don't you take us in the 7K range? Because there's a lot to talk about here. Maybe start at 75 to 8K first, and then we'll get down to the bottom part.
Well, couple of again, trip notes. Kevin Streelman, I don't feel like playing anymore. I don't like his attitude. that's okay. I don't like his attitude. I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. Guy gets frustrated on like whole 5, and it's not like good frustration. I don't like it. Not playing. My highest owned guys in the below 7K range is the aforementioned Maverick McNeely, actually, at 7K. And that guy is maybe 9 years old. I mean, it's possible he's 10, but he certainly looked 9. And to see him with all these guys, I mean, it is actually quite amazing. So in any case, he shows up for me on my numbers pretty nicely. So I'm definitely gonna be playing him. He's going to be one of my highest owned golfers. Actually, I have him currently at 40%. And then I do have Streelman projected pretty well. I'm getting some of him. I have Varner projected pretty well. I'm getting some of him. And there's one guy that I'm getting who I'm forcing out. And again, I don't, it's probably not a great idea, but a guy's projecting really, really well for me is Charlie Hoffman. And Charlie Hoffman always projects really well, and I never believe it, just because, again, I'm a little biased. He feels like he's 57 years old, okay, even though he's not. And we'll say one other thing, again, kind of trip report. He was in his group. He was certainly it looked like he was the oldest guy in his group or whatever. Dude, he was driving it really far. And so I don't know what's gotten into him, whatever, this whole season. So I would fade him at risk. Let's put it at your own risk. I'm doing it. I'm really not playing Hoffman, but he's projecting for me really, really well. So just I'll throw that out there. And that's all I have to say about this range. You got a lot more guys? Yeah.
So starting with the top part of the range, I like Keegan Bradley, but he's probably going to be a little too. I don't like him when he's too popular. I probably will get off of that. I like Kokrak's price. I think that's interesting, but again, pretty popular. I think we should be playing some Russell Henley. I don't really understand that he should be 5% owned on this this particular slate. So he's the one I would side with just from an ownership standpoint. Tringale would be the next one from an ownership standpoint. Billy Horschel from an ownership standpoint. More large field, not guys I want to focus in my builds around, but those are the guys who stand out to be too low owned, I think, in this. And then I will add one more that's going to be really low owned. I don't understand entirely why. I will be happy to play Siwoo Kim at low ownership and take some shots with that. I don't think he's not a core piece for me, but he is a guy at 7,100 that I expect to have no ownership that I like. And part of why he has no ownership is because Charlie Hoffman will soak some of that up. I actually love Johnny Vegas. I think that he picked up some steam. He was projected to be much lower owned earlier in the week. I think Vegas is a really strong play. And I think Hoffman. Hoffman was one of my original guys, and then I can definitely get behind your McNeely so. I like the bottom of the range the best, the 7,100. I like both 7,100s and both 7K guys. But I think that getting some low ownership on a Russell Henley is a good idea at 7,800. So that's what I got to say about that, I guess.
Right.
And then down in the 6K range, I guess we both have a bunch of guys down here.
I got all kinds of stuff down here.
You're not even the 6K range guy, so when Sheet says it, you pay attention, guys. This is usually
I got all kinds of stuff. So I have of my top 15 ranked guys. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 guys are under 7K.
Oh my goodness!
And one of them, the guy who's ranked 3rd, is I want to ask you about, because you've mentioned something about him that I wasn't aware of. So I'm gonna actually go from the bottom up.
Okay.
So my 15th, my 7th ranked guy is Stuart Sink. Actually, my next ranked guy from the bottom up is Patton Kazire, and I like all these guys. Yeah. Then Emiliano Grillo, then Aaron Wise, Ryan Palmer. So now we're down to the final 4. Chris Kirk. So now the final 3 guys, the guy I have ranked 3rd, which I can get talked into putting number 1 based on what you just said. Tell me, I want to hear more about this Max Homa thing. Because I have him as my 3rd ranked guy. And if you tell me there's extra motivation or whatever it is, we can talk about that. But let me finish. My 2nd ranked is one of the aforementioned, Sebastian Munoz, who I was sweating with. And then my top ranked guy on the whole slate is the other guy I mentioned earlier, is the lone wolf walking by himself, Taylor Gooch. So Taylor Gooch is Sheets' favorite play of the day.
Yeah, Gooch is a projection model stud this week, and I'm into it. I like it just enough. I would say I think Homa, I believe he needs a top 10 probably, and it's not for sure because it's hard to know what everybody else is going to do. So that's where he needs to go, and the idea of him shooting when he needs to shoot to go low, I sort of like that opportunity. I also like his style in general. He can be a bit streaky, and that is what we want for these tournaments that are no cut events, especially. So I'm not worried about him having to make a cut of any kind. I just want to take advantage of his upside. And in that vein, I think Carlos Ortiz is a really good off the board play. Love the Grillo call. I have Grillo as one of the guys who I am prioritizing in this range. I have Chris Kirk as a guy who I'm prioritizing in this range. I have Patton Kazire, similar to you.
Excellent.
So we're on a very similar page with all these guys. I didn't get to any Stuart Sink, but I totally understand it. I like the Sebastian Munoz play quite a bit, and then I like Cam Davis. Both Munoz and Davis should be the highest owned in the under 6K range, other than maybe Keith Mitchell. But I think that I think both of those guys are strong plays as well. And I like you. I like the bottom of the 7K range and then a lot of the 6K range. I will be pairing it with my 8 and 9K players. That's the way I'm sort of going about my builds this week.
Yeah.
Now we get to have some fun and talk about who's going to win this thing.
Yeah. Rahm is going to win. He's just going to win. I mean, I'm no fun. What can I tell you?
After all that, the 10K thing, Rahm's just going to win. Okay, so I totally makes sense to me. I'm tempted to say Morikawa a little bit because I have a little bit of love for him. But I'm going to go out and say that I think that this is going to be a weird week that Rory wins.
Ooh.
So he's
okay. I'm in.
Kenny talked me into it, and I had it already on my board as it was. So I'm very big on Rory this week.
Okay.
And then go ahead.
So we'll say under 10K to get top 5.
Under 10K to get. Sorry, you go first.
Under 10K, I'll go. What's his name? Like I said, Hovland.
All right. I totally am good with Hovland. There's a lot of guys I like that are lower owned, so that's the only argument I have against him. I will say to get top 5, I'm gonna say Oosthuizen. I like that Rory. If I can get like a Rory Oosthuizen Hideki build, I actually think I like that sort of build. So that's just something I'm considering doing. So I'm gonna go with Usti.
Under 9K to get top 10.
Under 9K to get top 10. Tempted to say Hideki, but I've sort of talked about him enough. So I guess I'll just talk about Harris English, who I think is my next guy. that I like the most there. I do like Burns and Neiman as well, but I think Harris English is the one I'm going to strap myself to.
I will say, just because I didn't give him enough props when you talked about him a little bit earlier, as I will go with Scotty Scheffler.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I
Now
always want to play Scheffler, so I'm always good with it. I just didn't have him as high this week.
Now let's say under 10K to make. Let's go. Let's under 10K to get top 15. How about that?
So under 10, under 7K to, I mean under
8K to get top 15.
Okay, I'm gonna go with you know, it's tempting to want to just say a low end guy and take a shot with Siwoo Kim, but I think the better move is to I think I'm gonna go with Johnny Vegas.
I'm gonna come up with a guy that I'm not playing that much of on DraftKings just because of the way my builds are going, but I will go with Shane Lowry.
It's a good one. I unfortunately, yeah, we didn't talk much about him before. He did sort of pop off a little bit for me earlier, but I sort of came away from it a little bit this week. Let's talk about the under 7K range.
For top 20.
Okay.
I'll go first. Even though Gooch is my favorite play, he's all the way down to 6,200. I'm going to go with the guy who was, dude, he was really, really good. At least when I saw him in round one. I don't know how he ended up, but I will go with Sebastian Munoz.
I am totally cool with the Munoz idea. I am going to talk about the guy we talked about in Max Homa with a little shout out to Emiliano Grillo. Look, Grillo owes me. Okay, I'm tired of this. This guy, if all my 5 of 6s with Grillo this year, for some reason, I don't know how many cuts he missed, but I feel like every week he missed the cut. I had him with a beautiful lineup. So I'm gonna say Homa, but I would a little nod to Grillo over there as well.
Sounds good to me.
All right, so we're in business. I mean, I'm gonna. Sheets, as long as I keep playing the guys we talk about it in our little game at the end, it always seems to go well. And by the way, when I played the game with Kenny that week where Kevin Kisner was there, and he wasn't even that popular, Kenny took Kevin Kisner. So
that's awesome.
And he was 8,400 and he took him to win for the win. So I thought that was a pretty good call.
That's great.
All right, so I've got my list. I'm excited about golf this week, guys. I hope you guys all crush it. Sheets, anything else before we get out of here?
Nope.
Let's do it, guys. Good luck to everybody.